Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Sunday, and what is the 16th, right? I think, perhaps, could be.
Yeah,
So far,
16th.
as far as I can recall.
As
As far
far as
as
I
I
can
can
recall, it's the
as
16th.
far as I can recall. Now, what have you seen this week, my brother? Actually, I'll tell you what, bro.
Oh,
We wanna let some people come in. We're so hasty.
yeah, let's just start. I've just been cleaning today. I just literally been fixing the house. They've got some vines growing up the grapes, which if I'm not careful, they're gonna suffocate and kill all the grapes that we got growing. So I've had to clean all those today and just really been doing a lot of housework today. And then we got a new kitten as well. So we've just been had 2-3 days now of chaos. Trying to bring those two together. It was like do you remember seeing Step Brothers? You know, the opening scene where he says, "You can call me Nighthawk." It's a bit like that with two cats,
Right,
and they just
right.
sit there staring at each other. And then, after a couple of days, they're besties. Now they're sort of chasing each other around the living room and licking each other, and it's like they've been best friends for ages. But we just had 2 days in separate rooms while we were trying to get the kitten integrated.
If that's what works. I see, complete insanity in the USA as usual is what, Laura says. So,
Great.
yeah, we've got a crowd that's been waiting. They would like to see us on, Friday, but I said, when we were talking about, Shaun and I were talking about, kinda how the audience behaves, we think you have more time to pay
Mm.
attention on the weekends. Work week is a thing, and Sunday is a time to reflect on what the hell's been going on. So, Shaun, what the hell's been going on?
What the hell's been going on? Well, there's a lot going on this week, actually. Pretty much, I think the thing that stands out for me is obviously we woke up this morning and Wild Breeze was on fire. The biggest one near Moscow was on fire. Rob Gilman got released this week, so I mean I don't know where you. I'm just going to rattle off a couple of things. Rob Gilman got released this week. I think captivity. It's a good day because many don't. But I think being used as a political prop on the way home was quite disgusting for someone that looks so ill, so gaunt.
That's
That I
right.
think we've got Ukraine making ground. You've got more fuel problems and in Russia at the moment. So it's sort of I wrote this week. I've actually started to write some positive things about Ukraine for the first time in quite a while. We've been looking in with the protests, and we've got a lot of problems with ballistics coming in at the moment. No interceptors, no PAC-3s, and North Korea doesn't seem to get a mention anywhere politically at the moment, which is kind of strange, which I want to talk about probably later on. But yeah, it's kind of weird at the moment. But we've made some ground, quite considerable amount of ground. So where do you want to start? What's taken your um, fancy since this week?
Well, I mean, I've been working on a lot of video office work. Honestly, we've done a lot of filming in July, so this last 2 weeks has been sort everything you've filmed. And in the areas that we did film, I have a greater sense of, for instance, how interceptors are competing, where Ukrainians are developing interceptors for Shahids. And this
Mm,
week, actually, the military came upon essentially the current conclusion of who has developed the fastest intercept, nearly 700 kilometers an hour. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and one of the ones we had tracked actually in person that we went to film was 340 kilometers an hour. So that gives you a perspective. I mean, essentially double. And
Yeah.
I don't know how I was able to, you know, I wasn't able to film it. One of our other guys, I hope he was able to film it. They did several takes because the thing goes by so fast. So imagine 700 miles, 700 kilometers an hour intercept. Also, potency on that is a big deal. On top of that, the discussion of whether or not Zelensky can come up with an ambassador is still in the air. Um,
I'll do it.
and yeah,
I put my name forward. I don't think I'm in Trump's good books.
yeah, right. um, so just kind of that, and we got hit with missiles twice this week, especially last night. Um, having nothing to intercept, and I can't even hear them in motion. As soon as the air raid went off, I had actually decided to go rest. And as soon as the air raid came on, and how it came on, I knew it would be ballistics. And we'd had one earlier, probably 2 hours earlier, where nothing happened to Kyiv, but we were on an alert anyway. So I knew the second one would be us. And again, multiple in the same location that you can't hear. You just hear it when
Mm.
you see the impact, and then you hear it, yes, but you don't hear the incoming sound. So, and having
No,
heard
you don't. I
various,
mean,
yeah, it's already there, but it's already made its
you don't
detonation by
hear
the
it.
time it's yeah.
Yeah. No, it's pretty bad at the moment. We had 3 last night. It was pretty bad. About 3 o'clock this morning, you don't hear there's nothing really going out, at the moment, which is kind of odd because that's, North Korean ballistics, for those that don't know. Russia's switched to using ballistics because of the lack of interceptors and PAC-3s, and what you've got is, really Russia using the North Korean stockpiles and whatever they're mass producing there and bringing them in because they wanna keep that momentum up because they're firing more rockets now into Ukraine as a whole. And the city North Korea stepped up, as being a significant player at the moment. Really, I mean, to put it into context, as we said, it's they're supplying more troops and more specialist troops and, ballistics and ammunition and that's probably more troops than the fighting element of the UK military, their T. Uh,
Mhm.
it's an active foreign element, which is not getting the news. It really, Chris. Are you there, Chris?
Yeah, is it buffering on your end or mine?
I
Get a
don't know. I
little.
seem pretty okay
Okay,
here.
good. All right, no, we're fine. So the other thing is that, on our shelves here, we have, um, uh, some outages. There's a lot of things that are perfectly fine. I notice beer and alcohol will always seem to make its way to the shelf. Um, but there are things that are being destroyed that, are civilian items. And the hard part is that I know essentially in the tit for tat box wars, box store wars, um, you know, we enjoy seeing wild berries go up, but they're going to enjoy seeing Rosetta go up. And they don't give a fuck if there's not a dual purpose happening in Rosetta. For instance, this week from Rosetta, I ordered 3 cables that go for adapters for battery sleds, as I call them, and couldn't get those on time because they had already destroyed the Nova Poshta logistics center about a week ago. The new soft lights in here are Wi-Fi controlled, not very expensive, thankfully. Same thing, had to wait because essentially the intermediary logistics had been destroyed, and none of those are dual purpose. But Russia doesn't give a fuck. They've been destroying Nova Poshtas, Fozzy, epicenters, uh, all in between the entire time. That's not new. So,
Hmm.
it is, but it is showing up on the shelves. I actually posted some photos of, going in and seeing, like the shelves where you've been to, our food store in my neighborhood, and, the ready-made
Yeah.
stuff is gone earlier, much earlier. So those ladies normally would be working well past 8 or at least close towards 8, shelving out various types of crap cheese pizzas, stuff I would never eat anyway. Mostly I don't eat that stuff. But, none, none now. And same thing with the other shelving, you've gotta get in there significantly earlier to get what's there. Um, in other shops I've gone in and they said they sort of work in different volume, but they said, same thing, the major logistical outlets have been, affected. So that's on the agendas.
Yeah. I tell you what did
Take it.
stand out for me today, that we're ironing out some glitches. So this is a picture that was, basically the same week, 2 different types of pictures you can see there. One is, I'll try and shrink that a little.
Is Sean's size freezing? Naomi said your side is freezing a bit, where it's buffering.
Bit more there. Inside. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Your side's
it
buffering.
that's interesting. So that side there, what you can see there is 2
Yeah.
different types of war being fought, you know?
Mhm.
One high-tech, Ukrainian, innovative,
The other one is just merely optical.
playing bunker mid. I mean, it's really bad, even if you're, s even if you're not in the military, you could just see the 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 different type of atmosphere there with very wooden looking Russians, and a cosplaying bunker midget who's just, changes his uniform every now and again. And,
Right.
and that says a lot. For me, if you're gonna go back in history and you're gonna look at this war, I think they're gonna look at pictures like this, and you're gonna see a lot of that, this Soviet Union worship, in my opinion. I mean, that picture just stuck out to me today. That it was enough, but I wanted to use it as a title pick, the 2 pictures, put them together, just so you could see, our followers could see, our subscribers could see the difference in the standard, and the different way it projects domestically into Russia against, a very innovative young Ukrainian dynamic government who's innovative and who's taken back 700 square kilometers of ground, despite the fact that Russia is very much wants the world to think that it's pushing on regardless, which is not the case. Russia's still losing every single day, roughly the equivalent of 2 or 3 battalions of soldiers, which is,
5,000 this week is
you
what
know,
I heard.
it's been the worst month for, I think, over 40,000. Yeah, I mean, that's just, especially when you're only recruiting somewhere along 20, 25, 27,000. I believe it's, that's not gonna pay off.
Right.
You're at a deficit. So, he needs another 30 to 50,000 North Koreans to plug the gap until he can get through these elections in September and do a bigger mobilization, which I think's on the cards. And I don't think he's going to get a second or go home, which is, you know, that's not winning. That's not what Russia thought they would be doing right about now. 4 years in is another mobilization, which I think is going to be very detrimental, to Putin. How's the
Well, as we've
buffering? Is it
said,
better?
it's still doing it, but, I mean, that run I was able to hear all through. one of the things is that we both of us have been very straightforward with people to say stop doing the hopium thing. It's not saving Ukrainian lives, but it doesn't mean that Russia's not losing by this continuing. Now, here's one thing that is changing in that regard. Russia is standardizing its, expense of its own capital, right? It's standardizing it so that it can sustain a war essentially ad infinitum. Now we know it really can't, but if it were to bolster itself enough to keep doing damage for a while, the will of the West would likely break. Ukraine is increasingly working towards trying to make sure that it's prepared, as you know, with tests from companies like Firepoint and others, to be prepared to say, hey, we won't be dependent on you, but we're not there yet either. So hopefully that the arc of those two situations will evolve close enough to each other where we can survive here. We'll survive in the sense that we're not going to surrender, as you know. No one
Gonna
I
be a
know is going to
tough
surrender.
winter.
But it's going to be actually, I thought about that today with some of the things that are, being hit. That we've already went through a very tough winter this last year, and I've been through 5. This is going to be my 6th. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same week. They've just said they're probably, 2 or 3 months away from getting ballistics there. Moscow's well within, the sights of Ukraine. They want that. I think y despite the fact that, we are getting hit by ballistics, we're showing the world that we can still counterattack. We still can take ground, and I think that's really important, at the moment to be able to show, especially America, who seems to be, I keep hearing this still that Trump may have changed, and I'm just like, dude, I can't see it. I mean, they're either super optimists or, I mean, where has it changed? I mean, we have no
Trump has not
interceptors. He won't
changed.
give us licenses. Military aid's been pushed back to 2029. I mean, it's like he might send Witkoff and Kushner might come, but why? I don't think they're going to do anything different. I think they're still going to push Putin's he wants territory he can't take militarily, and I think they're still going to push that. There's nothing to say that Trump's changed his tune at all. He's done nothing. There's nothing working on the coalface here. So Ukraine have got to build these ballistics, and I've always said it. Once you build those ballistics, then they start hitting Moscow. Russia is a really St. Petersburg and Moscow, and that's it. That maybe change Putin's, idea on the war. Especially, I mean, if they can strangulate Crimea and keep doing what they're doing, then that's the jewel in. No offense, but Putin doesn't want Kramatorsk as much as he says. It's not the be all and end all. Russians don't sit there in Russia thinking, "Oh, Kramatorsk, that's the place where I'm going to
Right.
go for for the summer."
Oh, honey,
Crimea's the one
remember
you
when
want.
we summer in our dacha in Kramatorsk?
Yeah, Sloviansk, that's what I
Yeah.
really want Sloviansk. Yeah, that I can't see, Russians, they really are not
I know
bothered about that. But
Ukrainians who
Crimea,
feel
they
that
are.
way. Yeah, I know Ukrainians who feel that way because that's home.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
to
like
our
my
to
wife,
our viewers, by the
she's
way,
can't go
I
home.
just a quick reminder.
Yeah, no, they can't go home, can they? I mean, most of my battalion was the 1st battalion whose home was Crimea before they were kicked out, by the Russians. So, yeah, I mean, they don't really need to expend, soldiers in taking Crimea. That's gonna take soldiers away from the front and other parts of the front. If they did start to I don't think Ukraine can afford to do that right now. I think they can just keep doing what they're doing and hitting the logistics and And look at the fuel now. I mean, the fuel in Russia's the fuel problem hasn't gone away. They hit Omsk this week again. That's closed now for what, another 6 months till next year at the
Right.
very earliest. So they are sufficiently down in where they need to be. They're importing more fuel now, which is, I've just written an article about that this week, explaining that situation, regarding the situation with fuel and inside Russia. So they are struggling. That's having an impact on small businesses, as well, because I've seen reports in Sochi of shops being just closing. They're just closing down, and garages now closing down, and it's really hitting home in Russia now that it's come to their doorstep, which is great news because that's what you want to hear in Ukraine. That they're now starting to have their feet burned a bit by, they're not interested. We said before, they're not interested in the fact that, 25,000 predominantly Russian speaking Ukrainians have been slaughtered, including women and children in Mariupol. What they're really concerned about is whether they can fill their car. Unfortunately, they can't do that now, and that's having an impact on them. So I think Ukraine know that. I think they're doing the right thing. I think they're making it very difficult for the general populace, and that's the way you're going to get this war to turn. I don't know what else you can do. Essentially, is put pressure on Crimea, start attacking Moscow, because it's not going to stop. He's going to keep going, and he's building for the long war. He's got 50,000 probably North Koreans coming in. He's going to have another mass mobilization after September. Absolutely, anywhere between
You could
100,000
tell
and a million. Who knows?
you can tell what his mobilization concepts for Russians themselves look like when he keeps turning to North Korea. There
Yeah, I
is no
mean, did they see that?
patriotism vibe.
I mean, it's not just that. I mean, it's the North Korean workforce, the Indian workforce, the Chinese workforce now being brought in masses to support the war project. I mean, there's a lot of things that don't get reported on very much, which we're trying to highlight, which is that workforce that's now helping the war industry, and that is essentially is going to free up a lot of Russians to get called up again. It's like Putin's in a better position away anymore, and trying to get out because he's going to block that. And digitally he's got them cornered now. The new Max app. He knows where they are, what they're saying. I mean, this is a Russia is run by the FSB. It is, it
Pretty
is,
much.
you know, open to abuse. It is being abused. Let's be honest. There's no free media. There's no, everything is state run. FSB have, infiltrated pretty much every organization inside Russia. Everybody's too scared to speak. And
Yeah, and
people
this
keep
is
saying
the
to me, "Is
thing
there
a
going to
lot
be
of
a
people
coup?" And I'm like,
well, this
"Go
is
on."
the thing a lot of people don't understand about, um, the reality of Russian opposition. It's sorta like when we talk about certain Republicans in Congress. Great. So and so went and stood for something. Everything's different now. You know what I mean? It's like it gets celebrated, they get hauled up in front of liberal media, Republicans get hauled up in front of liberal media. "Look, we found a good one. We found one. We found look, it's like it's all over, fascism has ended." And that's the same way that's why that was the core of my, the good Russian is not coming to save you. It's not about whether there are good Russians or not. It's the problem in the liberal West, and I don't mean like liberal conservative when I say liberal West, but basically, what we call the liberal West. Um, trying to find the Navalny's, trying to find who it is that replaces Putin, not realizing, you know, Putin is not down there with a fucking helmet and, body armor and fighting the war. He's not like the kings of the past
No,
some of which, there's plenty that didn't do this, but, um,
he's
you
cosplaying.
know, he's not even that, right? Look at those photos. Pull that fucking photo up. Well, he did this week. You're right. The Navy cosplay he did. Finally, But think about it, like, he just
Yeah, it is.
cosplayed finally. How about that? He finally cosplayed a Navy uniform this week.
There's a total contrast in there. Every time I look at it, I think it looks like he's in a caravan in Sochi.
I didn't know what it
It does
was.
it just looks I mean, whoever his PR team are, someone needs to be given some poison tea or thrown out of a window because whoever when you look at this is exactly the same week, and you see the high-tech Ukrainian
Yeah,
picture
the
that's
one where
gone
he's
out, and then
leaning
you
over
see this
towards them. Do
caravan
you
in
have the
Sochi. Yeah,
do you have the
yeah,
one
yeah.
the one below that? There's another shot from that set where he's leaning across the table to handshake the same guys.
I haven't,
He looks
no,
like
I haven't, no, I
no,
haven't
he
seen that.
looks like he should be on Russian Airlines handing me my fucking tea. So
It doesn't look like a trolley dolly on Russian
Chai
Airlines with
Balaska.
that hat.
Chai
I just
Pожалуйста,
kept looking
блядь.
at Chai Geordie Chai.
Jordy Chai Balaska,
Yeah,
блядь.
it's
Пожалуйста,
just
блядь. Bad. I've got an
he's
attitude problem.
it
Sorry.
just sums up his war, that picture I put on X this week. It just sums up his picture. I mean, it's just, you know, 3 SMO. After 4 years, you're gonna look like that's the team you're gonna take with you, and that's your
Right.
PR team working overtime to get that picture out, to sell it to the masses. I mean, they must look at that and just go, "What the fuck?" You know? It's like in a caravan in Sochi. I think that was my biggest hit on Twitter ever when I put that. It's like
Right.
this week, it just went 'cause, they stopped all the revenue this week on, X, and I've been bleating around the fact that X has really squashed my account, really restricted it so bad, and people say, "Yes,
Yeah.
'cause you're Ukrainian supporter." I started to believe in that. When he stopped the revenue ad sharing on that this week, mine skyrocketed back up to what it used to be. And I said, "That's man-made. Whatever you think, that's man-made." I'm now hitting 600 to 1,000,000 interaction on X, and that's where I was before the restrictions got put in, and so something's gone on. Absolutely, something's gone on.
Fascism.
But, you know, that's Elon. Fascism.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep trying to make sure we have the content. Sean, I'll say here while we have a moment, we're at 27 minutes in. Everyone who's watching, if you are not subscribed to our accounts, to Sean and or mine, please do so. And I'm gonna put you on a spot because I have an attitude problem. Um,
You let a ball of hay.
Regularly. When there was a missile attack on the first, do you remember how long I hesitated to get my boots on?
No, no, no. You wouldn't listen to
Mm.
me when I told you it was far. You were straight
Well, I understand
out the door, and
I
I was going,
understand my distance
That's further
measurement.
than you'd think."
I understand my distance measurement issues, but the getting ready, getting boots on, hitting the ground at 3 o'clock in the morning. Check. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. 3.5
Following through
kilometers
to
later, 6
following
dead
through
ends.
to following through to destination. Check.
Yes.
Getting it done, getting it filmed. Oh, by the way, interviews done, in the can, ready to go, including stuff that you put on your account. Film done, in the can.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's really important even to do the 3 minutes, I think was great to
Yeah,
get it onto Instagram and stuff to just follow through. We didn't get in till about 6 that morning. I think we were out covering the protests all day, and then we were,
that's where I'm heading
up
next.
again
So
at
so
2 till about 6 in the
we
morning.
filmed I filmed marches in Dnipro and Mykolaiv, and then or not really marches, they were stand vigil protests. And then we filmed and we're at the full march basically 2 weeks ago on Friday. Check.
Yes.
Tens of thousands of people. Shaun, I apologize to our crowd, but I did not film any shawarma makers and how they felt this week. And the
It's
reason why I
still
say
very
that
important.
is the reason why I mention that is that we live here, Shaun and I, and there are very few people who genuinely understand the news that's happening here. And the point I was making is, yes, I also filmed shawarma makers. I just didn't do it this week. I did film what was happening in the grocery stores. I did film what was happening with the logistical problems with that. We went out and filmed the rocket attacks when they happened, and we researched these, and that's the journalism you need. And the subscription is not about filling our pockets so we have revenue and blah, 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 like some journalists, content creators. We literally have obligations in front of us with Ukrainians who need the news out. Shaun knows a range of people that I don't know, and vice versa. And so when you are subscribers, when you're paid subscribers, especially, you're making sure we can do that fully, full mindedness. And we both know it's far from getting done. You were able to see protests in Mykolaiv, in Dnipro, and Kyiv because our cameras were reliably there. And we will work harder to ask the street food makers how they feel. How are you getting your onions, Mustafa? And that's my pitch. Thank you. Shaun.
And you'll be able to that, to be honest, because you're going to see we got out papers into the European Court of Human Rights this week. Yay! That's it, done. The Russians have been served. We're just dining out some bits with the British UK.
Bravo, bravo. And what happens with that? You want to tell the audience?
Courts, but staff goes towards that. Actually, we got to quickly. Am I still buffering? Am I still buffering?
I got you now. I got you now. I just want to hear your. I want to hear what you say.
I don't know what it is. Must be the internet connection because everything's good. So, firstly, your subscriptions that we're currently doing. So we were lucky enough 2 years ago to get a verdict in the Kyiv courts. Not as easy as you think. Not as easy as you think, even though it's Ukraine. The UK courts and the European Courts of Human Rights, where we've now served for me, my torture, my right to life, sham trial to then inform Ukrainians to do exactly the same thing because they were pathway and a mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Shaun, tsunami. It's never been done. It's
catching part of what you're saying. Real quick. Catching part of what you're saying. So I plus I know the case, but I want to make sure the audience is saying it's breaking up a bit. So I don't want to lose such valuable words. Okay. Yeah. Let's see.
I know.
Are we on the best channel? Do you have two channels on there like mine? Look at 5G and a regular G.
See if I can make
a 5G and regular G. I have like regular G, and then I have like the 5 one. Not that regular G. It's actually true, by the way. Yeah. Okay. We'll figure it out. You tried to get on and off again, Shaun.
I might have
Terry Fellow says, have you tried to I love that. Bravo to Terry Fellow. No. Terry Fellow wins the day.
No, so I had hopes for him. I just wanted to get through this with a new gizmo, OBS, to get through without.
Well, your image looks good. Your sound looks good. Sounds good.
Any problems? No, maybe we can use. Yeah. Let me see what we can do about that. I'm going to try and take the AirPods off. You fill in while I just sort out, see if I can sort the sound out quick.
Yeah. And again, so like I said to our audience, in some seriousness, part of what I spent this week doing was organizing films that are really not even for the public. Like today, I sent a film of a funeral I filmed a little over 2.5 weeks ago for a mom of a British defender. And it's not a big public film. It's not something that's out there for everyone else. It's for her. And today she got to watch it and said essentially mission accomplished. You help make sure that's not an issue. you help make sure things that Shaun and I do, and I feel this way about like Terrell Starr. I said this about when Terrell's raising money. Same thing. There are things you may not see that's an obvious article, an obvious video. Ultimately, you will, because a lot of what you do see, the reason why quality is better is because we know things and we take the time to put that into the material. And Shaun and I laugh that I send you funny video clips of reporters and journalists, and one of and it's not that I dislike them either. I just find it odd sometimes, and I say, please shoot me if I ever do the following. And look, it's a burning building and it's been hit, whatever. I don't want to be that guy. Um,
I'm
so,
back.
yeah, you good?
See
Let's
if
see if
that's
that will help out. Yeah, it's a buffering,
better.
but your image is
Or if
actually not too bad.
the different speakers.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's buffering.
Well, it's the main thing. We got to improve the internet speed, and we're in Ukraine. We can only do so much.
I think so.
I'm not kissing up to
It is,
Starlink.
unfortunately. I might have to go back to my phone if that's the case, if it's really bad.
Okay, well, we'll try. So, you want to tell us again? I just didn't want to lose what you were saying about the case.
So, the situation is we've taken we've now served the Russians through the Court of Human Rights in getting the verdicts there and in the UK. It will allow us to then really pursue our verdict. Are you hearing me still?
Yeah.
Good. So we will allow them. It would really set a pathway for Ukrainians then to get verdicts through having really verdicts in our favour through the European Court of Human Rights. The that's coming around, which should be sort of in a position to move forward this week. In New York, at the
It's still
Russian
buffering. Here, let's do this. Let's do this. You want to switch to your phone while we still have the flow?
Yeah. Can I come back in 2 seconds?
Yeah, we'll do that. No problem. Shaun left the stream. He'll be back. Hold on. Ta-da. Hello, everybody. I'm a friendly neighborhood host here. Gonna do everything I can to make sure things are working for you. And there we go.
There we go.
Let's see if that gives us any better situation or not.
It should do. It should reduce the bandwidth, and we should have some good conversation.
There we go. We go. Okay, now New York. Yeah, go ahead.
That's better. I bet you can hear me better. Yeah, they're all saying that's better.
We'll solve all the technical things.
We'll solve
Yeah,
it. So
we'll
let's try
manage.
again. Apologise for that. We can. Look, there we go. Seems better already. So what we've got is a situation now where we've submitted the papers to the European Court of Human Rights. We are now looking to get the verdict recognised in the UK, which would be great, because then if we do, we can then enforce the verdict. That will open the door up to many Ukrainians who will then be able to pursue the Russian state. It's a landmark case. It's never been done before. And then once we do that, it could involve billions, a big legal tsunami coming in because of, the atrocities Russia's committed. So it's very big, a big time for us to be able to move forward and go to court and have our justice, a day of justice, really for the sham trials, the The torture, wasn't given a right to a fair trial. And Russia is a founding member of the UN. It's a part of the UN Security Council. They are enforced or meant to be enforced in the governance of this. They don't even allow humanitarian aid or independent
Right.
humanitarian aid groups in to see prisoners in Russia. So, it's quite a bizarre set of circumstances that they could do all this. So we will hopefully set the path for, if we're successful in many Ukrainians, then be able to claim against the Russian state. We're not saying it's going to replace people, but some people have lost husbands and sons and houses. You remember there's 10 million forced refugees here that Putin's created, and so it will go some way into hopefully giving them something for the future if we're successful. So we should move on with that very, very soon, I would think. So we had the good news this week, and your subscriptions help to cover the cost for all our flights, hotels, trips, fighting 3 legal cases on 2 different continents. So it's that's essentially we want to tell you what's going on here, and that's what you pay for, and upgrades that don't work, OBS that doesn't work, and
Right. Well,
cameras
let me
that
make a
don't
good
work.
point. I just traveled across the country, to Mykolaiv, Dnipro, Sumy, Kharkiv, several days of filming at the, War Museum, and you can call that guy and ask him how big that invoice was. That big. Shaun, you've filmed with me, and I don't send invoices. What I send is files and dedicated time to make sure we get that message out, and we lost your image there suddenly. What
Oh, have you?
happened?
I know what's going on with
Uh,
my head at the moment. It's a bloody nightmare. 2 seconds. There we go. We're back
There we
again.
go. Okay. And my point is this, is that we both know media people, and it's perfectly okay to earn money. It's perfectly okay to have a normalish job, but there are really not many people who are like waking up and focused on learning the aspects of the war, relaying the aspects of the war, and just getting it done, like flat out,
Yeah.
constantly, nonstop getting it done. And so, I've said that the audience has a way of participating, and part of it is the subscription itself, or even greater if it's behind the scenes, some way of PayPal, Venmo, and
Oh,
all that stuff
sorry.
to really fill up the coffers. Because one person did that today, who's watching, by the way, and I said will help me to focus on coming to Zappo to do work with you. And I do think it's important for the audience to have a sense of what they're doing is, um, I wouldn't say vicariously, but it's an extension of the reach through our work. And I like working on like this lawsuit and the various type of casework that's behind it with you. So
Yeah, for sure, sure, and it's massive to some people. This, but the law the law takes so long. It's taken so much time and money to get this far. I mean, Voices from the
right,
Front was really started by Brahim, um,
yeah,
and trying to raise money for Brahim, who's a Marine stuck in Morocco, who's never been given a passport, he can't get out, get closure, can't go to trial, and that then led on to where Voices in the Front from the Front is now, and where we're moving next. So I really appreciate everybody's help and support, and um, like you do. It's amazing how many people read your post, repost it, but don't actually tick the like box, which is like critical.
yeah.
I don't. It's like sometimes I have more reposts than I have likes. It's crazy, and you just think, please,
Yeah.
just like the post. It means a lot. Now
There's
I
a truth
understand when
to
people say that.
there's a truth to the annoying algorithm YouTube talk. Hey everybody, so just make sure you hit that subscribe and like button right here, and then whatever they have to say after that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you
yeah,
think it's annoying, except for the science shows that that reminder it takes out of passive mode. And
yeah. It does. Yeah,
what I'm saying to our particular viewers is that, and remember, I come from Pacifica Radio. We're very much an activist oriented radio station. most radio
Smash,
stations are passive.
smash the
You
hearts. I love it.
Yeah, smash the hearts. You turn on the radio, you ambiently take it in, you go about your business. In good activist radio, you're generating action in some capacity, and we want your action in some capacity to help
Yeah.
Ukraine, and then tributary conversations that may affect the national security of your own country.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's bad time at the moment for us here.
I can hear you. I'm gonna
As
shut a door, but I can hear you. Keep going. Sorry.
yeah, okay. I'll do my tap dancing routine. I think it's a bad time with the ballistics at the moment. I can't see this. I can't believe we're at this point for over 4 years into the war that we haven't got any interceptors, and now Russia is adjusting and adapting to that. I think it's putting in the groundwork in for the long game for next year. Certainly, as Chris said, and I've said, I don't think there's going to be any peace talks before the end of the year. I hope I am proven wrong. I hope somebody, but I've not been wrong yet. But it's a sad state we're in. But I know things are going on, but it's going to be a very difficult winter to try and defend against you having your military infrastructure taken out by the Russians because you haven't got any interceptors. I think we're in a sorry state of affairs
The
we're in.
mission is gonna be to take out where the missiles are,
Yeah,
to take out
shoot the
the
archer.
mission, shoot the archer, to remove the ability to fire them. And I've long understood this part of the Ukrainian logic. It's been it evolves in how it has to apply because the war evolves, but the pound per pressure application on the Ukrainian side keeps being better than the Russian side over and over again.
I would say we just, over 700 square kilometers, we've just clawed back 26
Mhm.
settlements, which I wanted to show you the graphics and the picture, which we can't do now because the bandwidth's quite small. So I'll have a look at this. Another problem we've got to sort out, but we're getting there. We're getting better at it. And we'll certainly get this software up and running and to a point where we can start showing you these graphics. But certainly, um, I would say Rybar's information that deep state, keep looking at that because they're contradicting each other right now, especially around those 26 settlements we've just clawed back, where Russian state is saying one thing and Rybar saying one thing, and actually, deep state saying another, and Ukrainian government. There is really a fog of war around those front lines at the moment. But you've taken settlements back. You've taken settlements back. I think Ukraine's getting really good at hiding that information, and the OPSEC has been exceptionally good in this case because they've done this operation very quietly. And you've also had reports this week that the Russians have pulled out of Dnipropetrovsk region as well completely because of the fact that they haven't got resupply, they haven't got personnel. So it's really problematic on the front for the Russians at the moment, which is why they need the North Koreans to supplement their forces. We can't. Another thing I was going to say was you can't. I see a lot of things saying, the North Koreans, they'll be dead in 2 months because there's only 50,000. And I say, well, it's not quite the same as your African recruited, very minimal training guy who's now serving on the front lines in Russia. Do you know that? I didn't know this statistic, but did you know that 1 in every 3 POW that's captured by the Ukrainians is one that's not been born in Russia? It's
Mhm.
he's been brought in. So that tells you the
Right.
extent that Russia's using foreign foreign soldiers now to come over, recruit them, and bring them over and fight on the front lines here. And North Koreans are a regular military. They're specialists. They've been taking part in. They're already formed. They've had significant military training. Those guys that came here before are now going back and instructing. They're a different breed. They're not in the same element as someone from India who's come over and been dragged into the fight. So that's a significant force, and that's one to watch for moving forward because they're taking more of an active role here, bringing launchers too, specialist personnel, which Europe's not saying anything. Nobody's saying anything just yet, which is maybe the degree of importance that's been put on it. Either it's super important, nobody's scared and they don't know what to do, or I'd like to think that somebody's got a plan about this and knows what they're doing, but nobody's saying anything about it.
Well, New York Times tried to break a story this week about Russian involvement in Moldova. I had to scan it and literally I had to feed it to Claude and say, okay, based on my own writing, what the fuck was new in this article we didn't already know? We already know Russians work in Moldova. We already know they're Eurosceptic. We already know they're trying to break apart NATO. What's the news? Well, they read documents. Oh, they read documents. Wow. So I guess now Russia is trying to break Europe apart for real because New York Times read for fuck's sake, man. Russia's been trying to tear apart the alliance forever. It's the number one objective besides tearing
It
apart
is the number
America.
one objective.
Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
dumb. New York Times, come on, man, do better. I feel like a new
Thomas had a good
Spider-Man movie.
question. Would you
I'm
call
not
this
seeing
a
any
world war?
questions.
Thomas said,
There we,
"Would you call this
oh,
a
there
world
we go.
war?"
There
Yeah,
we go.
absolutely. We are in a world war, and I'll tell you the reason why. Because now Ukraine are hitting not just Russian oil refineries, but they're hitting the transport hubs and the vehicles that moves that oil globally. You know, they can't. You know, and you've got Russian shadow fleet tankers
Right.
flying other countries' flags. You've got North Koreans involved. You've got Indians and Chinese workforce going into Russia to support the war effort. You've got, I mean, we're in a war. It's affected Iran, Israel, patriots. Now Israel and Ukraine are fighting for the same US resources, but in different continents. I mean, we're in a world war. It's just nobody's really calling it that. You've got
And
Africans
I'm
being
sorry,
fought every week in Ukraine.
I did not scroll, so I was seeing like a few comments back, so I didn't catch that question. Here's an additional thing. You have Russia saying, along with their satellite stupid voices in Africa, saying that Ukraine was helping the um, basically Al Qaeda in the Maghreb and
Oh yeah, yeah.
AQIM. Yeah.
I've seen that.
And it's like, what? Like, okay, so I actually know the story about what's going on with this. They definitely were working to fight with to help Tuaregs push out Wagner. To especially in Libya, there's a lot of campaigns that were pushing back on Wagner, and the 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 way in which the Middle East defense against the drones, the anti-Wagner behavior, which requires Ukrainians, the shooting of civilian vessels that caused Iran and Zelensky to go back and forth. And I'm going to basically say it that way instead of Iran and Ukraine, but essentially Zelensky's orbit, made peace. They calmed it all the fuck down. But it is so many different participants in this. They're not in the overt belligerence category either. It's all over the map. It is
Mm.
coming up where it's got so many different opposing parts that in some cases, two, for lack of a better term, allies will point one direction about, one part of all these conflicts. And then if you turn it around long enough, they're allied with another person who's against, or another country who's with, in other words, it's not a binary axis and allied powers like it was in World War II. It is much more complex.
Oh yeah, it's definitely more complex. It's even the I was talking about the battlefield today. It's like Russia will have you believe that they've inched forward and unstoppable, and even just deciphering the battlefield is hard enough now. If they've been advancing since 2022, why the hell have they still stuck pretty much in the same place? The Black
Mhm.
Sea Fleet has had to relocate, and Ukrainians are now taking ground back and putting pressure on Crimea and the Southern Land Corridor. So if that's the case and they're doing so well and they're advancing since 2002, why the fuck have they gone anywhere? It's
But
like
what I'd like to know is why the fuck, if North Korea has troops on the ground here now, we do have an international legion, yes, but essentially we do not have countries deploying troops to Ukraine for logistical purposes, humanitarian purposes,
no.
to stop the war. But
This is a
North Korea
foreign
will send
military.
troops. Right,
Regulars from a foreign military in Asia, of all places. Yeah, I totally agree with you. This is like, suddenly we get Brazil want to come in and send 50,000 troops to Ukraine. I mean, it's
right.
on par with that.
It'll
We
cost the
just
West more. It's gonna keep costing the West collectively more to not get in the fight, because Russia's
to
not
keep
going to
ignoring it. Yeah,
retaliate. Yeah, if each country threw 1,000 troops in, just to pick a number, um, but we'll take the existing Ukraine Defense Contact Group type countries as an example. Let's say 15,000, 20,000 troops that would now be logistical troops, or that kind of support, and would free up Ukrainian labor to bolster the front, you know? And what's Russia going to do? What's Russia actually going to do once that happens? They're going to pitch a fit. They're going to go to the UN and have their bark dogs go blah, 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 blah. And they'll have Soloviev and they'll have Lavrov talk a lot, and they'll do not a fucking thing. They'll do hybrid warfare like they already do. They're not going to do anything else.
absolutely. I couldn't agree with
That's
you
my
more.
pitch.
Look at where we were 2022. Where we couldn't bring. We're not going to supply tanks. We're not going to give you, allow you to fire ballistics to Russia. We're not. It's just changed so much now, where there are ballistics talking about hitting Moscow within the next 2 or 3 months on a regular basis. There are flamingos going in every week by the looks of it. Drones hitting oil refineries. I mean, if we'd have stayed done this from day one, this war might not be continuing. It might not got past the second year. So, I mean, it's a different war now, which is what I keep telling people. It's a different war now. Innovations is taking it to a whole new level. It's not the same as it was in 2022. 2022 wasn't the same as it was through the ATO in 2014. And we're now at
Right.
another stage of the war where innovations just flying. Drones are now been improved so much. We're still only at the infancy of that. We've still got AI targeted drone swarms, and where we go from that. Everything is managed now by drones. Now the front lines are 100 kilometers wide. I mean, it's
Right.
phenomenal. You're going to
You
die
can
before
rescue
you
a
even get
cat, and
to them.
you can rescue a cat, and you can rescue grandma all with drone power.
It's crazy. Food goes in now. Ammunition resupply is done by drones. Casualty evacs are done by drones. I mean, everything's unmanned drones now. And if you're not on that path, I mean, I think NATO will whoop Russia's ass now, to be fair. And I don't think that NATO's got a worry about Russia
Here's one.
invading an eastern bloc. I
Not
don't think that's going to be
invading, not invading, but I have a warning for the West that's pretty damn obvious. I don't have to be a soldier to make this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Between now, in the case of global war on terror, there are veterans who are warm and ready to fight for the most part. It wouldn't take long. Um, but near peer, and that concept at least, essentially Russia and Ukraine are the only two fighting at this level. That unless you have already fought here, you're not going to be able to lateral over magically and have the powers of that equalization and experience that Russian soldiers will have. And that's true for European soldiers. They need to be in the fight for the training alone.
Mm.
They need to be in the fight here, training FPV training, because they will need it. They are going to absolutely have to have, not how to just put on goggles and actually run the pedals on it, but also like the mental wiring, as you know, the finger memory, the reflex memory that wires in, hey, there's something on the transmitter, do what next that the transmitter shows you're targeted by FPV. Because the best soldiers in the world, if they haven't been in that situation, they're gonna have to come up with a brand new fucking menu on the spot because they didn't have any training in that. Or they had like a 2-day course. I just came back from a course that's 45 days long, just on FPV training, and it's use and defense of. And the guys, it takes a while, and it took a while to put that course together. It's built by Ukrainians, taught by Ukrainians. Um, and this is really, really, it's disappointing that the Pete Hegseth style bullshit in the White House and the Pentagon isn't really much different than the kind of flat-footedness of Europe. Poland is working its way through its shittery lately because it's a good country and trying to do good things. The majority are trying to do the good things. That's the good news. And so they're, choking up some patriots now. Their real leadership, and let's keep in mind what the real leadership is, so minority voices of populism don't overwhelm. They're gathering up patriots, and they're saying, like, and Navarrete is like flat out saying that absolutely we need to be protecting the skies over Ukraine versus the skies over Poland itself. Once it's over Poland, it's too late. Okay, yeah, but what about troops? Train. And you just found the Ukrainians did a simulation in Germany and whipped the shit out of the American Corps.
Mm.
Like they brought in the big armor. And the big armor comes in, and my friend McCullough Melnick said this to commanders when he goes to America. You gonna bring what? Like, yeah, of course I love Bradleys. Yeah, but I'm just gonna use about $700 in FPV drones to disable them.
Yeah, I know.
And the
Pete
commander's like,
Hegseth's,
oh, really?
Pete Hegseth's stuck in a movie. He's got no real idea. I mean, what we do bad things
Weekend
to
at
bad
Bernie's?
people. I mean,
Is it weekend at Bernie's? Is it weekend at Bernie's and it's Trump who's asleep? Trump's in a food cart.
uh, I mean, they're comical at the moment. I think the Americans. I did read a survey today that the FT did saying that most Americans feel worse off. I don't think feeling worse off is your biggest problem. I think your projection across the globe is just really, really bad at the moment. You've got a president who just falls asleep. Falls asleep in meetings. I mean, it's not great. Even when he's
Fuck.
it's just fucking. You see
Dude,
that?
there's a lady who apparently has a buzzer for whenever he falls asleep to make
He's got
sure that something.
that fembot that wakes him up, isn't he? The one that was sitting there going,
Someone
it's
asked,
just
we don't want to get off on a Trump rant here, but
no, no,
someone
no, no, no.
asked, what if he, and they start going like these kind of bimbo actress types that have no value other than being blonde or whatever else. So because that's Trump's type right there, no real character and just blonde. And someone said, well, what do you think if he appointed one of those? And a lot of people said, yes, we're in liberal tears now. We can't function because he did a crazy thing, as if he hasn't been doing the crazy things with stupid, like Carolyn Levitt, his example. Yes, she was such a Rhodes Scholar. And how dare he do that to the Rhodes Scholar?
It's just messed up. Everything is messed up. I mean, it's like he's still going on at NATO, and the next person go, oh, well, Trump's changed his tune, he has. He's really starting to look at Ukraine in a different way.
He's the
Really? Just give me
distraction.
one thing. Just give me one thing he's done that he's looking at Ukraine in a different way. Just one. Because I can't see it. And I don't think anybody
I
else can
can.
see it.
I see there is one thing he did different recently that I had not seen in a while.
Go on.
He ran to that fucking food cart to get the fuck off the plane instead of sort of crawling around. Where's the
He
food?
did. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
man, that motherfucker was like Olympic level out that fucking thing. I built it.
So I did see a tweet the other day that just made me laugh.
Coward.
It said if Trump was captain of the Titanic, he'd have been first off the boat in the first life raft, telling everybody that he was the best captain, the greatest captain, as it was sinking,
I was the king of the dinghy.
as king of the dinghy and the greatest.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, we're sidetracking here. I can't talk about Trump because I get irate when that
But
Trump came out. He
like
did a
I got
struggling
I
for
got
an ambassador.
some of the people here didn't get to hear this story this week, but I got called a fascist by a well, now I can't really say he was ever a friend, but a person I knew in Houston for 24 years that was a friend. And the guy's a Marxist-ish, or as I call it, poser revolutionary, because that's really all they are. The reason why I said that is because like that crowd has nothing they ever do about people like Trump. They like to talk
Mm.
about them, but they don't ever do anything about them. Um, and more importantly is that there's a paralysis and a sort of crowd out there that hates Trump, but doesn't really do anything for Ukraine either. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Bit like
yeah,
Russians. Oh yeah, well I don't agree with the war. What have you done about it? Nothing.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I'm not going to say anything or do anything because I'll just go in prison. Then prison for it. So
I mean, I don't want to sound cynical or nothing, but yeah, we have to have people take more action. In fact, I would like to invite as we leave to have our audience tell us ways you take action to help Ukraine. What do you do? What would you like to do that maybe you didn't see happen? You would like to see it happen. Some cool idea. Some coverage, something that you would like to see more of, or especially ways that you advocate for that type of change at home. Even if, like in some cases, a couple friends of mine say, "Well, I may not really advocate specifically for Ukraine only," which I do, but I advocate for the types of changes that will ultimately also help Ukraine. And I go, well, like what? Well, like defeating Donald Trump. Okay, yeah. I mean, essentially, that's pretty generic and big and broad. But what did you do though? And they'll tell me a big grand list. Oh, cool. So you're busy. Okay, and I don't have to ever come back to them because I know they're like busy, busy level. Like they're in the midterm fight. You know. So
oh, I
similarly, I
hear.
just want to hear from people what people do, so I hear ideas. And Shaun, you have a chat for Voices from the Front. I'm in there. If you would start a thread in there that asks that, say, "Hey, friends, share ideas of what you do or what could be done," and I'm going to do the same thing at the wiretap.
I could. I People think I hate Trump. I don't hate Trump. I would love a Trump administration that did shit for Ukraine and got behind Ukraine, and didn't whitewash war crimes and genocide that's going on over here.
Right.
I would love. I'd back Trump to the hill. I would be wearing MAGA t-shirts if he was doing that and supporting supporting Ukraine. But let's be honest, he's owned by Putin. And Putin's committing genocide here. I've ceased to call it anything else now. It's you've got drones taking out greengrocers and people just ignoring that fact. Even just this week, Human Rights Watch had just said there was cluster munitions that just hit Kyiv. What were they hitting in the city to use cluster munitions? I mean,
Yeah, I actually saw it. I saw it from my location. Remember? Yeah,
absolutely bizarre
Ballistic.
that this isn't making front page news anywhere. I mean, it's like it's genocide. I mean, it just hit a book depository again today in Kiev.
Yeah,
And
but China book depository there. So actually, there's
this
a
isn't
market up there.
new.
A week ago, a man who had an incredible vinyl collection. It was a lifelong work that this great man had put himself into, and all of that gone, and now books, all of that gone. And some of those places
Just
are like big
crazy.
flea markets, and yeah,
It's genocide. If they want to eradicate any culture or anything of Ukraine, who can sit by and just watch that? If somebody said
right.
to me, Shaun, at 52. you would have been captured by the Russians, gone through all the shit you went through, given the death penalty, fought them, and you'd be in Ukraine. And I'd have probably laughed at them before 2018. I went, "Are you joking? Seriously,
Right,
really? How could you just sit there and watch your friends being killed, homes being taken, uh, the city you were living in just be taken?" I mean, it changes you. It makes the war personal. It's like, I mean, naturally, I hate losing anyway. It's like I got to keep
right.
going. Ask my nieces when we play Monopoly.
I see some people were mentioning, like, Come Back Alive. PJ talked about,
Yeah,
vehicles for Ukraine, etcetera. So, yeah, some of those fundraisers are very important. Keep in mind, always inspect your fundraisers. Come Back Alive
yeah,
has been
do it.
a long time, and I will say, like you mentioned, United 24, I want to point this out. There are news, if you will, operations funded by government. There are not enough independent journalists out there and independent voices. Independent means you're not paid by the government. Independent means a corporation is not putting that money in the bank so that you
We're not
have to make that
paid.
hedge fund. Yeah, how about we ain't paid, homie? We're
Heaven,
paid by
we
you
ain't paid,
guys.
so we're definitely independent.
Yeah, like I
We
say,
do this for love.
I'll send. Do I send the same invoice as last time? When
Yeah,
I go
but
film, I
nothing.
always say that to certain people. Do I send you my invoice before or after? It's always the same.
Yeah.
So we will see you next week and throughout the week, depending on what's happening. And I appreciate you much and thanks for being here. See you soon. Don't forget again, subscribe. Even a free subscription will keep you informed on what's going on. Check
80 people.
the
Woo!
timelines. Check the timelines
Good.
sometimes because I notice people are not always seeing things. And we will see you soon. Tomorrow, I will have our friend Tom Much, who interviewed you. And
Oh, Tom, yeah.
I think he's over in Kharkiv right now. So we're going to
I'm
have
in
a
his
good talk.
book. He put me in his book.
Yeah, man. Dogs in
Dogs in Mariupol.
Mariupol.
I'm in his book.
And dude, I just put your book away. I'm sorry, I had your book sitting here right next to. It's up on the
It's great.
shelf.
I can't believe we got 85 people. I apologise. We'll sort the comms out. We'll get that sorted. Do
Yeah.
apologise, but I think we'll stick to the phone until we can get the bandwidth up down here.
Have
Dnipro's a
I
bit
been good
different from
support,
Kiev.
brother? Have I been good
Yeah.
support on the tech side?
Oh yes, mate. Yeah, I wouldn't have done it without you, to be honest. All these different bits, but we're back to the phone. Unfortunately, we're
The
gonna
the
have to.
reason why we do that, that's just a Wi-Fi issue. The reason why we do that is because, as I said, I did this thing earlier this week. You may have seen when I said tasting the peach. And by the way, someone said peaches. Yes, I have brand new peach sitting on the counter, and I have a brand new yellow watermelon from Cherkasy. Um,
Oh, nice.
the thing I said earlier about tasting the peach, which it's that direct experience. We have to have people here who can count on your experience and truthiness, and my experience and truthiness, and the ability to actually gather, assess, and disseminate information to this audience. And so I want to thank you for you being a good brother, no less, and thank you for the work you're doing, man.
If somebody wants to give us 100,000 per episode of, we're all ears.
I'll go further. If there's someone here that wants to help fund an actual news bureau operation, serious news bureau operation, Shaun and I
Absolutely.
are serious as it gets. And between both of us, especially with our press badges, we have the ability to put that together. The reason why we don't have it is funding. It's not
We don't
everything
have a
else.
sugar daddy.
No, we got sugar mamas. All right. See you soon. Slava Ukraini.
See you later. Bye, everybody.
Slava Ukraini.
Or Slava.
И пиздец Российской Федерации.